very much for the invitation and for choosing this very important topic. I will have difficulties to stick to 5 minutes. I will try to make it. An introduction has been made already by Mark about climate smart agriculture. I don't know if you remember the climate change debate, how it started. It was very much focused on the transportation sector, on the industry sector. And it is only in 2010 that agriculture actually came into the picture. And this was absolutely necessary because agriculture suffers a heavy impact from changing climate conditions. At the same time, agriculture is a contributor to greenhouse gas emissions especially, and has a role to play when we seriously tackle now this, the issue of climate change. Now, climate smart agriculture has 3 components, 3 objectives, and one is to increase productivity, improve the livelihoods of the people, so that it's people-centered. At the same time, it will look at how to become more resilient against what is happening with the climate that is changing, that is adaptation. And it has a 3rd component, and that is mitigation, reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. And when we work on climate smart agriculture, we work on all of them. It is not a newly invented tool, but it is an approach that takes seriously into consideration that climate change is happening, that weather events are more intense and are much more frequent around the world. So I put up this slide because it shows some figures that came up today and you will see the FAO press release on that. You can see from the 3 pie charts that the contribution of agriculture to greenhouse gas emissions declined over the past 3 decades. So you have the AFOFLU, it is agriculture, forestry and land use, from 27% to 21% nowadays. Now the emissions from crop and livestock production, in absolute terms, they have increased. They have reached an all-time high of 5.4 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, which is twice as much as in 1961. So the absolute amounts are growing. It's just the share that has been decreasing because the portion of fossil fuels has increased quicker than the one that is related to agriculture. I won't go into the details. I have the absolute numbers if you are interested here. Something that went down are the emissions from deforestation. And it's linked to, let's say, certain limiting reached of what is economically viable to deforest, better governance, and also increased productivity on production on available agricultural area. What is not reflected in this chart are that there are 1.9 billion CO2 equivalents that are removed from the atmosphere by forest sinks, for example. Now, regionally, the greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture, they grew fastest in Asia, about 2.4% more in 2012. And they decreased in North America and Africa, minus 0.7 and minus 1.3% respectively. So the source here is FAO's FAO-Stat emissions database, which helps countries to report their mitigation efforts in the context of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, technology matters. Technology matters. We cherish what we measure, and we measure what we cherish. There have been significant decreases of greenhouse gas intensity of agricultural products over the period 61 to 2010. on this chart you will see this development, and you will see that the greenhouse gas intensity for eggs decreased by 57%, rice 49%, pig meat 45%, milk 38%, cattle meat 27%. So there is an increase in productivity that is not translating into increasing greenhouse gas emissions, and that is the importance of technology. Now, cattle remains an issue. It's responsible for 73% of the greenhouse gas emissions, and the one important component here is enteric fermentation. So yes, I mean, dietary choices matter. If you choose to eat one or the other, it will matter to what extent greenhouse gas emissions have been produced or not. And this is also linked to the what we call the conversion efficiency, because in order to produce 1 kilo of beef, you will need 10 kilos of grains. And the proportion for chicken is, for example, only 2 kilos of feed to produce 1 kilo of food. Now, there are many technologies around. Just sort of monitoring the soil quality is one of them. Plant and animal genetics, precision agriculture, agroforestry, improved seeds, drought-resistant seeds, combating animal and plant diseases, promoting biodiversity, but also along the whole value chain, tackling the issue of food loss and food waste, the issue of dealing with consumer behavior, looking at weather statistics, insurance, and so on. So there are a number of technologies.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to rush you, but I know you have some examples.
I have an example. So this is I have three examples. One is the Climate Smart Agriculture for smallholders in Kenya and Tanzania. And it is an example of combination of technologies, which is very, very context specific. So at the basis was a site-specific assessment of the benefits of adaptation, mitigation, and food security, the three components of climate smart agriculture, of different agricultural practices. And this was done together with the farmers concerned and with the communities. It was linked with a lot of capacity building, information, sensibilization, and farmer participation. What resulted from that is a combination of tools. In the area of mitigation, this project has led to 300 energy-efficient cooking stoves in order to reduce deforestation. The communities also built 2 biogas digesters to produce renewable energy from cow manure. In the area of resilience, the communities they created 44 tree nurseries, they planted more than 33 seedlings, and established 235 terraces to conserve soil and water. So what is the difference here? It's a strong ownership by the community, capacity development, promoting a culture of dialogue and coordination across sectors and voice. Some of the challenges remain, some of them are linked to land ownership, gender roles, and upfront investments. But this is an example where a number of different techniques were actually employed. Another case study really comes from agriculture, and it's about urea deep placement and also the South-South collaboration. Traditionally, rice fields were fertilized by spreading nitrogen over a wide over the whole field, and about 60 to 70% of the nitrogen applied was lost. It led to greenhouse gas emissions and also to the pollution of water. So what was new with this approach that is based on climate smart agriculture was that now the farmers, they developed sort of small briquettes. They produced briquettes of urea of about 1 to 3 grams, and these were placed deep into the soil in the paddy field once that the plants have been transplanted. So what is the result? The nitrogen losses, they decreased by 40%. The yields, because of better use of the fertilizers, increased by 25%, with about 25% less urea being used. So this is a project in Bangladesh. The results from the project was that the incomes of the farmers, it increased because of more yields and less costs of fertilizer. Jobs were created. There are about 2,500 small briquette making machines in Bangladesh. And while you need more labor, 6 to 8 days of labor in the fields to actually plant these briquettes into the soils, these costs were largely offset by the increased efficiency. These technologies being scaled up through South-South collaboration. In the context of South-South collaboration, there is one big advantage, is that you can actually transfer knowledge from one area which has similar to another area that has about similar conditions in terms of weather, ecology, and so on. So this is now being, it's a technology being used in Nigeria. And then the third case study, very briefly, is in Nicaragua. It's an ecosystems approach to fisheries and agriculture. In Nicaragua, there are about 13,500 artisanal fishers. With the project that was conducted in collaboration with Nicaraguan organizations. It was first an analysis of who the fishers are, how many vessels and how much they were collectively fishing. There was an analysis of the ecological impact of the fishery sector, and there was clearly a risk of degradation because of shrimp fisheries and agriculture and aquaculture, mining and deforestation. So it was not only what was happening at the coastline, but also what was happening higher up. So the ecosystems approach allowed to increase the income from the fisheries while preserving the ecosystem's services and increase the resilience of the communities. So what was new? What was new was better monitoring system and management plan, which was agreed with the communities concerned. The development of income-generating activities, mostly in aquaculture. Governance was strengthened. The voice of the communities were strengthened so that they could also liaise with the agricultural sector and the mining sector, who were having an impact on the ecosystem. And there were cooperatives that were created for shrimp production. So the difference that this project made is to improve the livelihoods of the people, to diversify their income so that they became more resilient, strengthen the institutions, especially the management and monitoring of the natural resources.